This is the Final Word Daily, the day after the afternoon before, or something like that. Adam Collins with you. Our show brought to you by Maurice Blackburn Lawyers, Australia's #1 plaintiff law firm, and New Brew. So here I've got rocking the New Brew Advantage if you're watching on screen here, which is the one that tastes like strawberry lemonade, which I absolutely love. 15% off, link in the show notes. More about them later as well. And I am delighted to say that someone I said about 2 weeks ago, we will get you on if South Africa win, or we will get you on if South Africa lose. Because last year when we had him co-host the show, when the Proteas didn't quite get over the line in the T20 World Cup Final, he was a very popular co-host, a very passionate co-host, a very informed co-host. Of course, it's none other than a freelance extraordinaire, brilliant writer, excellent communicator, Dan Gallan. Welcome back to the Final Word.
Wow, what an intro, Cotto. Thanks so much. Great to be back.
You've been on Media Street. Rightly so. You've done a lot of these types of interviews. You've almost become the standard bearer for those who have told the story of South Africa through the lens of the fan. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I actually mean that in a way that's a little bit different to how Jeff and I typically make the program. And I think there's a reason for that. I wanted to start there. Like the way you interpreted yesterday's victory, I felt was the way that like a footy fan might interpret their team winning the premiership, having had a drought of 40 or 50 or 60 years or something like that. Such is the extra layers that go into this when it comes to the South African team and the history of the country and transformation and post-apartheid. Like there's so much there that this means so much more than it would to other countries. I'm interested in your perspective on that as we get the conversation going.
Yeah, I mean, this is the sports team that I've loved the most. The South African cricket team. I have club football teams. I've watched the Springboks win 4 World Cups. I don't know what they mean to the country. I've cheered on various iterations of other sports. But ever since I was a child, the Proteas were the team I loved the most. And I guess somewhere along the way, I kind of thought that they'd never do it. I'd accepted that this would never happen. So seeing them do it, it's not a great thing to say on a podcast, but I'm short of words because I have to have some words now. But I still don't really know how to process it. I thought I was going to come on here and I was going to be a stream of consciousness, and I was just going to be able to rattle off the eradication of a lifetime of pain and anguish and write a new script that wasn't filled with heartache and chokes. But I'm still trying to process it. I think it's so special.
Yeah, no, I sense that, and the emotion that came through from you and other South African colleagues that Jeff and I touched on yesterday, and you and I spoke after the pod yesterday as well, and I think we sort of tried to give a megaphone to that rather than focusing too much on what was essentially a poor performance from Australia in the second half of the Test match, losing all of those wickets on the second afternoon, which reopened the door to South Africa, and then they climbed straight through. Having the presence to sort of seize the moment as well, knowing they were chasing plenty that third morning when it was drifting away, like lesser sides made of lesser stuff, maybe sides who had not had so much riding on this week might have just let the thing drift away. But you could hear it in the words of Temba Bavuma yesterday, and indeed the actions of him throughout the Test match as well, that this just means so much to this group and so much to the country.
It's a cliche to say, and it's always said in retrospect that one team wanted it more. And I don't know if that's 100% true, because Pat Cummins and his team have created this dynasty, and winning this and then winning in Ashes would establish them as having beaten everyone else throughout the cycle, that they hold every single bilateral Test series against every other nation. So they want something as well, and they wanted it. But I think it's undeniable that South Africa needed it more, and maybe that's what it is, because both teams had this game lost at various stages. I mean, if you just take South Africa, they had the game lost on day one when they lost 4-0,
yep.
and they couldn't hit it off the square. It felt like they had the game lost when Smith and Labuschagne were batting until. I mean, they felt like they had the game lost when Smith edged just before Smith edged Markram's part-timers. They felt like they had the game lost when Stark was leaning on Rabada and Agidi and making them look like medium pacers. They should have lost. They are an inferior team to Australia, but you don't need 11 superstars to win your test match. You need 4 guys to have a day out. And Aiden Markram played the game of his life. Kagiso Rabada was unplayable. Lungi Ngidi bowled the spell of his life, turning into Stuart Broad. It just came together. Temba Bavuma on half a hamstring batted maybe the most important innings of his life. Steve Smith, who never drops catches, dropped a catch only because he was standing 4 meters in front of the wicketkeeper. So, it was a great test. As a neutral, and I know you were a more objective observer than me, so maybe you could speak about what a good test it was from a cricket sense. But it just felt like it was such a good game. It really was a good game of cricket, and
the best games are the ones where there are where you never really know who's entirely on top, where it does vary from, in an ideal world, session to session. This test sometimes it felt like half an hour to half an hour. You didn't quite know who was properly on top, and that was part of its charm. The conditions as they flattened out, which is in keeping with what we're conditioned to in England in recent times, by the way. This wasn't unusual that the pitch got slower and lower, and Daniel Norcross is quite good on this about drainage and so on. But it didn't. We didn't get the deterioration and the madness and the volatility with balls keeping low or turning square necessarily, but it was almost mesmerising watching that partnership between Markram and Bavuma build. And let's just go to the end and the aftermath as well, because when Jeff and I recorded, the nursery ground was erupting behind us in that like temporary pub setup on the sort of in the concourse there. But this went on for hours. I mean, the players themselves, Brett, wrote a beautiful piece overnight about watching the players on the balcony, then gathering around the mace and singing a song. I'm not sure what song it was. Maybe before celebrating wildly out there, and the sort of the balcony party being where it was at, with Rabada feet up, smoking fags, drinking beers. This is just it's old school in its own way.
Yeah, it's. I mean, no one's got any experience of what to do with this.
Yeah.
No one, the players, the fans, the management, even the way the Proteas' excellent media manager was conducting herself. It was almost like that. I'm reminded of that Talladega Nights when Ricky Bobby wins a race for the first time, and he says, "I don't know what to do with my hands." It kind of felt like none of us really knew what to do with our bodies. We didn't know what to do with our souls and our minds and our words, and we were all almost in this dwell. And we're like, "Oh my God, what now?" I mean, I had a few journalists in the press box come up to me and congratulate me, which is quite an odd thing. But they were congratulating all the South Africans. But then I can't remember if it was Andy Bull or one of the Guardian journalists was like, "Mate, what are you going to write about now?" And there's a sense of because I've made such a career writing about all this heartache. So there is a sense of, oh my God, what happens next? This is a new chapter. The chokers tag is done. I mean, I wrote in a piece in the Guardian leading up that I don't know I can't imagine myself walking as a South African without King Kong on my back, a South African cricket fan, cricket writer, cricket analyst, without King Kong on my back. And the truth is, it does feel weird. It's like, oh my God, is that what your posture is supposed to feel like? So there is this, I think things will come out of the wash. I did also write a piece for News 24 that I actually don't think this changes anything. And maybe we can get onto that in a bit. But this doesn't make the SA20 less important. Quinton de Kock's not going to come back. I don't think Cricket South Africa are suddenly going to offer a deluge of tests. I mean, I hope they'll offer some, but it's not like South Africa are now suddenly going to turn into the most test-playing nation in the world. So what does this mean? And I think a lot of people were trying to ask the question of what this means big picture. But actually, what I would encourage any South African to do is to get parochial, look inward. What does it mean to you? What does it mean to the individual? What does it mean to the kid, to the adult, the 37-year-old father who remembers my father throwing me balls in the nets, and when I was running around the Wanderers embankment barefoot looking for signatures and playing beach cricket with my mates around Christmas time. It means something for me, and I have no apologies making this about me. I matter in the story. The individual South Africans matter in the story, and I hope they don't lose sight of that.
Yeah, I think that's a point you've made really well throughout this. You wrote a great piece before for the Guardian before the test about do it for me, but I don't think you meant do it literally for you. You meant do it for the millions and millions of South Africans who have been in this with the team and with the players of generations, one after another. And you talked of generational trauma in a very entertaining piece on night 3, which I must admit I laughed probably more than you intended people to laugh when writing that. But I'm not laughing at you. I'm not laughing at South Africa. It's more like,
of course,
I get it. I kind of feel it as a fellow sports fan. Maybe not. I'm not a parochial cricket fan in quite that way, but I get it in relation to my own more passionate fandom around Hawthorn, for instance. And then yesterday, the way you were able to size up what it was meaning for people across generations as well, and how now it will feel different being a South African cricket fan. And, I think you also did a good job of articulating, as you did just then as well, why this won't change everything, but it might change it a little bit. It won't change everything. It won't mean that the financial challenges that are experienced by South Africa will be any less pronounced. It won't mean that the SA20 is any less important to funding the game, and essentially that's an IPL satellite tournament, which is not ideal, that your fortunes as a cricketing nation is so heavily skewed in favour of some conglomerates in a different country. But maybe, just maybe, it inspires the next generation. I said on the pod yesterday, they should take that mace to every school in the country. Whether there is that will there. Maybe it's not about Quinton de Kock. It's about the 13-year-old boy or girl who could be the next Quinton de Kock and who won't be forced to make the same types of decisions that he's been forced to make, or how he would interpret it, I'm sure, in the last year or so. So, yeah, there's a lot there, isn't there, to unpack, but maybe this could be a moment in time that we use as a reference point when things started to change. It won't be everything, but it should be something.
Well, we live in hope, I guess, if nothing else. If Cricket South Africa can't do anything with this, then really, what is the point of them?
Yeah.
If Cricket South Africa can't turn the greatest day in the sports history into something tangible, then they should all get sacked, quite frankly. then they're nothing but glorified accountants and who have the privilege of flying business class around the world and eating in great hotels on the company's dime. So yes, you're right, it should happen. I hope it goes to every single school around the country and every single club and all the rest, everything that you said. You and Jeff, literally, I sent you a voice notes when I was riding a bike through East London last night. And the way you and Jeff spoke moved me to tears. I felt like Aiden Markham, where the emotions finally came. I was kind of holding it together for a couple of hours. And I don't know if it was your dulcet tones or an analogy you used, but something moved me to tears. To answer the question, the jury's out, right? It's okay. Over to you now, Cricket South Africa. The players have done their bit. The fans have done their bit. What are you going to do now? Because if everyone else is doing their part, so let's see what you're going to do with this.
It feels like at a minimum they need to find a way to, and I know that this might be thoroughly impractical at this stage, but try and find a way to do something this home season. I'm not sure if it's a test match. It probably would have to be a test match. It has to be and I'm not sure how it would work around, I don't know, South Africa's schedule for the home summer outside of the SA20, whether there's a window or whether there's a way this could be fashioned together. But an ability for people like yourself and others to come together at a test venue like the Wanderers, let's say, given it's sort of the iconic South African home of cricket, and be there to help magnify what this means and help reinforce that it's more than just the people who were at Lord's yesterday and more than just those who were lucky enough to be there across the 4 days, but it's for the whole country as well.
Yeah, that's right. I can't think of another sport or even another country where world champions would have to wait close to 18 months to show off the team, to show off what they've got, to play once again in front of their home fans. The Springboks do it so well. The way that they engage with the people. They win a trophy and they come back, and it's for the people. And that's why I'm a little. When the Springboks won the World Cup in 2023, I wrote that this was for the country, and I generally felt like this was for the country. The ticker tape parades, the driving through the streets of rich and poor neighborhoods in the country, of which the disparity is so huge. It brought people together. When Markram and Bavuma and Maharaj and Shukri Conrad says that we're doing it for the country, I think that requires clarification, because I think what they mean, at least if they weren't being idealistic and they were being realistic, I think what they mean is that they've done it for the people like me, the long-suffering cricket fans of the country and the people who care about the sports in the country, because it is more, it does have a narrower interest, cricket, than rugby, for the socioeconomic reasons, for the struggles with transformation, the fact that they haven't won stuff. So I guess if they're trying to cultivate connectivity, maybe not trying to be so grand in their attempt to galvanize 63 million people. Maybe that might be daunting and that might put them off. But they think, okay, what we can just organize one test for the people who want to watch us. We don't. Let's try and keep our objectives a bit more realistic, a bit closer to the ground, and then maybe they can pull something off. I don't know, Colin. I forget what the question is, but I'm hoping that they can turn this genuinely monumental achievement into something tangible. Because, God, what a waste! What a waste if they didn't.
Yeah, and look, Shukri Conrad, the commentary that he's been offering since taking over all formats as coach, saying that he wants players to be thoroughly committed to the Proteas. I mean, it's an idealistic vision. It's probably contributed to 100 class and no longer being an international cricketer, right? Like it's imperfect. It's no science. It's just kind of like, as leaders, sometimes you need to do things that sometimes hurt in the short term. And the same can be said from Bavuma. His leg hurt an awful lot in the short term, but it netted a long-term gain, and so it might be with the direction of travel with South African cricket. Dan, I suppose my only last question to you before we move on to a couple of other topics and to a break and so on would be, what are your sort of parting thoughts? I know it's probably not the easiest to distill all of them right now, but how do you think you will look back on this in a month or two when things have settled down a bit and it's not so present for you?
Oh man, I'm starting to feel it again. Colin, I genuinely am just so like happy and proud of those guys, and I mean I'm literally I've got tears in my eyes. It's so it's so silly to like bastardize that quote. So like, of all the things that don't matter, this thing matters the most. And I know, like, it doesn't change anything. And cricket's such a stupid game anyway. And what a waste of time. And you know my wife Jess, she asked me on the Tuesday, so is the game over? And I was like, no, it hasn't even started yet. She's like, what the hell have you been doing for 10 days? So I don't know, man. I'm just so happy. I think of me as a 13-year-old boy who still thought I had what it took to play for South Africa, going to the Wanderers, watching them get pounded by the Australians, and just like loving them for it anyway. I didn't love them because they won. I didn't love them because they were particularly nice people. Really, when all the stories about the previous generation's character comes out of the wash,
yeah,
I just loved them because they did this thing that meant so much to me, and I loved doing. And it just like, this cricket team has always been able to reach into a part of me and yank something that few things have been able to touch, and that they finally did it. It's just been so cathartic and so beautiful, and God bless them for it.
I love it. Love the passion. You're right. Sport, it makes you, it does funny things to your brain and your heart in concert at times, and it doesn't sort of make sense when you think about all the, I don't know, you want to go to the extreme example, all the pain and suffering in the world isn't alleviated because of a sporting result. But, it sometimes just trying to be happy is a small contribution to making others happy as well. And I think that the way you've been able to express your joy has rubbed off on, I think, everybody. I was at cricket this morning with Winnie, and our colleague Jonathan Liu and I were having a chat about you and about this. And like, it's there's no cynicism in terms of what you're feeling at the moment. Everyone is kind of understanding of it. I think it's a beautiful thing of sport. You can identify with what it is. And great that you've been able to share that. I'm not going to let you go quite yet. We've got a few other topics to get through, but that's been absolutely brilliant. Thank you. Before we go to the break, New Brew. I've drunk an entire bottle while we've been yapping away here. This is the Advantage, which is the hero product. So what is New Brew? This is brain-boosting drinks formulated by scientists and health experts. They focus on cognitive health using nootropics, ingredients scientifically shown to enhance memory, focus, and overall brain function. Popular with young professionals through to seniors wanting to stay strong and stay fit above the shoulders. And I can say already that I've been really enjoying taking it a few times a day, probably more than I should be, if I'm honest. But as Brat and I have been in the com box over the last few days, swilling the stuff, we've been loving it. So New Brew, working with Jeff and me and the Final Word team throughout the India-England series primarily, newbrew.com/final word. And from there, you can grab it at a 15% discount, automatically plugged in. So you don't need to hit a code or anything like that. New Brew, NOOBRU, newbrew.com/final word. get your 15% off, and we'll tell you a lot more about nootropics and the health benefits and the brain benefits for if you're like me and you want to just be a little bit sharper, what this can do for you. We'll be back in a moment to round out our conversation and thinking a little bit about the Australian side before they go to the West Indies. This is The Final Word. Adam Collins and Dan Gallan with you, our principal partner on seasons 18 and 19 of the show, Maurice Blackburn Lawyers, who are Australia's number one plaintiff law firm. We've been over the last little while, Dan, and I know you've been listening to the show religiously, which is a lovely thing that you often provide feedback on the stuff that we're talking about, and we appreciate it very much. Telling stories about where Maurice Blackburn Lawyers have been able to help clients in relation to superannuation insurance, especially, and bringing those quite granular details, hopefully, to life. So one of Jason's clients is a lawyer at Maurice Blackburn's called Robbie, and Robbie is a carpenter who developed MS, which stopped him from working, which I can only imagine what a difficult thing that would have been. He had 3 super funds, but none of them told him about his TPD cover. So after 2 years of frustration, he came to Maurice Blackburn. They took over his case, handled all the paperwork, and secured the 3 claims he was entitled to, which totaled several $100,000. It was a life-changing outcome for Robbie and his family. And this is where insurance in relation to not being able to work due to injury or illness is so important. And Maurice Blackburn being there on behalf of hardworking people. All their details are in all usual places in our show description. And you can search Maurice Blackburn Super Insurance to learn more specifically about that. Dan, you were downstairs at all the press engagements yesterday, so you would have heard from Pat Cummins as well. He's talked about the big reset. I don't know whether he used the word reset. Maybe he did. Maybe he didn't. He certainly answered a question about resets and about the 2-year cycle. I find this quite interesting. Like, we get to the end of this, and a couple of weeks later, it's not like a football season where you get an off season per se. Australia needs to regroup immediately. There's no room to lick wounds. They need to get their shit together, and they'll be doing so against the Windies in Barbados, Grenada, and Jamaica 10 days from now. And the tricky questions they have to answer include how they manage the Steve Smith thing. He may or may not play with a splint. He has to wear it for 8 weeks before he can take it off, if he can bat in the splint through that pain, whether that provides a reprieve for Marnus Labuschagne, or whether they leave Labuschagne out anyway because of the run of form he's been enduring, and turn to Josh Inglis. But yeah, I'm interested in this wider idea of World Test Championship cycles actually providing a suitable time for test teams to start doing their medium-term planning in the short term, because if not now, then kind of when?
Yeah, it's an interesting point about the immediacy of it. What I do like, and what I liked about Cummins, whether he used the word reset or not, that was essentially the vibe he was giving off.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
I like that he's doing that after the final, because I guess it shows that in his mind, this thing was a final. And we talk about, what is the World Test Championship, blah, blah, blah. Some captains of other big teams have been snotty about it. But at least it shows that Cummins is like, right, we lost this thing, new chapter. So I like that cognitive differentiation distinguishing in his head at least. God, what do they do? I mean, Jeff was very good on this in his Guardian column. Australia stuffed up their batting, didn't they? They just got the lineup wrong. Cam Green looked out of his depth against the moving ball. Marnus played some nice shots, but was scratchy. Smith looked like the only one who could bet in. Head, I mean, his head. Your banker, he's not really right. He'll score the fastest 100, but
that's right. No, I don't think anyone wants him to be either.
No.
I think with Head, there's just an acceptance that he's going to win you a series, and that's the game you play with.
Yeah. Look, I think on those West Indies decks, if Khawaja plays, I can see him making a ton of runs. But then also, is that solving a problem, or is that delaying a tough decision down the road? I guess he's earned the right to kind of carry on. I mean, for me, Marnus is a big one. He was averaging 60 for like 3 years in a row or something like that. And the last 2-3 years, he's just is it a mental thing? His feet aren't really moving. His hands are coming down at a funny angle. Sometimes batters just do lose their mojo. Sometimes what we consider to be a generational talent is actually just in the midst of a spike, and they regress to their norm at some stage. The bowlers, again, also on a deck that flattened, kind of lacked a bit of oomph. I would have liked to see a bowling change as well, maybe for the West Indies. Someone who's, I don't know who the young Australia is coming through, but someone who could bowl on a flatter deck and change their lengths up. So
yeah,
they do need a reset. So again, cricket's such a retrospective game, right? Like Bo Webster, I wouldn't have said he's a player, but he scored 72, and that could, on a different context, be in the match-winning innings. maybe Bo Webster gets the man of the match and the Test mates, right? So we always judge cricket by the number that ends up next to the player's name, and that sometimes distorts what really is the right pick. But it does look like an old team suddenly because they lost and because they weren't able to kind of come up with a plan B. They do look like an old team. I mean, I'm curious. I mean, what are some of the big changes you'd make?
Yeah, I think that's it, isn't it? When you lose grand finals or when you lose big finals, it just accelerates the end for some. And it's not always reasonable or fair. It's I think that a lot of the time people forget how difficult cricket is at the top level or how hard it is full stop. I think you've got to play it to get it. I know you play and would appreciate that point that most of the time cricket is a bloody hard game.
All the time for me.
And there are such small, fine margins between what number might sit next to your name or what analysis might sit there at the end. So I know they don't judge players as crudely in that Aussie group as other generations may have. They're quite generous about the guys they've picked and have backed over time, but I still think that this is there is a bit of interesting news that's come out this afternoon that Brendan Doggett, unfortunately, has injured a hip whilst in the Aussie camp. He's going home. Sean Abbott's coming out to be the sub. To be the spare bowler, in addition to Scott Boland, if they need an extra two bowlers, I guess. And then Abbott might get a test cap in Barbados, Grenada, or Jamaica. I spoke with Brett and I did a radio show this morning. I'm like, I think it gets too easily... these days, the Windies are too easily grouped with a subcontinent. It's like, oh, well, anything that's outside of a sea in a country must be slow and low. Not really the lived experience in Barbados, especially. So, and the third test match is a day-night pink ball test in Jamaica, and they're never slow and low affairs for a multitude of reasons. So, I don't know whether it's as straightforward as like it'll be slower, therefore Khawaja cashes in. There'll still be some real challenges over there, and someone like Jaden Seals, who's come on in leaps and bounds with the red ball in the last couple of years, and a far more experienced operator, played quite a bit of county cricket, which will help his cause too. So, that's all.
And they use the Dukes out there, don't they?
They use they at different points they've used different balls, but I believe they're back with the Dukes at the moment. But it's a different Dukes. When I was there in 2015, it's not the same Dukes as the one they use in England for whatever reason. So there's a subtle difference there. But yeah, that'll be of interest as to how they set up. And the assumption there'll be two spinners. I mean, I assume there'll be two spinners as well. But we assumed that in 2015. And Fawad Ahmed didn't play. They went with the big three, who then included Mitchell Johnson, plus Nathan Lyon, who's had two pretty good series there in 2012 and 2015, which feels an eternity ago. I mean, it is in cricketing terms, 10 years. I mean, most careers don't last 10 years. Even successful careers don't last 10 years. Well, Lyon's going back there for a third time after a 10-year gap, which is rather remarkable. So that's where the podcast goes next as well, Dan. So Jeff and I will be in the Caribbean with Bharat. This week we've got England-India first test match at Leeds, which will be an ensemble affair. Jeff will do some of it. I will do some of it. Cam will do some of it from Leeds. Daniel will do some of it. It's a very sort of final word Christmas, if you like, with everyone getting a bit of a go on the pod as we transition over to the Caribbean. Then at Edgbaston, it'll be the Norcross and Ponsonby show when Jeff and I are on the other side of the world, and on it'll go all the way through. And I'm sure it won't be long, Dan, before you're back talking to us. But you know what? The tenor of the conversation will be different. The time, because we won't be getting on. It won't be like what you and I said off air a couple of weeks ago. If you win, we'll get you on. If we lose, we'll get you on, because we know either way it'll have this huge import. It'll have this huge overlay. Maybe it won't next time. Maybe next time you come on, we won't be talking about the long, decades-long travails of South African cricket, and it'll be more about what's going on directly in front of us, because those types of storylines won't be as pertinent. Maybe that's the legacy of this week.
Absolutely. I mean, I we were joking about, what am I going to write about now? Or maybe I could talk about the way Lungan Gidi has changed his length up over the years and hits the deck hard in the middle overs. Maybe I can talk about how Vian Mulder's cut and pull is not just grit, but a consequence of him growing up with a high fought, and how Temba Bavuma has become an expert at tucking singles off his hip with a change of technique and the way he moves his feet. I love to get cricket nerdy too. It's just that I've what's the phrase? I've been hoisted by my own petard. You don't go to the Stones and they don't play Satisfaction, right? So now I have to come up with a new tune.
You've earned the right. Earned the right. Yeah. It's been great to catch up. Been wonderful tracking the story with and through you this week. It's been great to see this happen for world cricket, for South African cricket, and it's been great to have you on the show today. Thank you, Dan Gallan.
Thanks, Colo.
All right, this has been the Final Word Daily, the wrap-up of the World Test Championship final. Thank you to our patrons, patreon.com/final word, the final word. How would I not get that right after all these years? To join our wonderful community. They were there every single day of the test, up in the Compton stand, down in the Edrich stand. It was great seeing so many of our patrons on Friday night as well. So get involved in that community. Much more going on there throughout the course of 2025. And to Maurice Blackburn Lawyers and to New Brew, great to have them with us as well. This has been the Final Word. I'm Adam Collins. We will catch you again very, very soon.